welcome to day 6 of my 2016 Christmas series. I hope you're enjoying the series so far. Today I'm going to be using this stamp set from Simon Says Stamp, which has all of these different Christmas trees which are really great for colouring in, as well as the matching dies. So I've gone ahead and laid those out in my MISTI, and I've used my grid transparency just to help me straighten the sentiment out and make sure everything's in the right position. I'll just remove that transparency, and I'm going to use my Onyx VersaFine black ink to stamp down on an A6 sized note card. So you'll see here I didn't stamp very well on that first go, which is a brilliant advantage of using the MISTI because you can just ink everything back up and stamp it down again. And I'm going to be making a couple of these cards, so I'll go ahead and do all of the first layer of stamping in one go off camera. You can see there is a small gap there in one of my trees. There's actually a fault in my stamp, but that's not a problem. I'm just going to go ahead and fill in the gap with my pen. I will at some point get around to getting in touch with Simon Says Stamp and letting them know. They are a really great company with a really good after service, so I've no doubt whatsoever they will send me a replacement. So you could stop here and send the card as it is on a card base, just with some coloured pencils as I showed there. And I am going to do that for my nieces. I'm going to send them a card to colour in. But I'm using the matching dies here to do some really quick colouring in on my stamps. Now if you have a stamp that you want to use this technique with and you don't have a matching die, I will show you another way that you can do this later on. So I'm taking some removable adhesive and I'm going to press each of those foam pieces onto a stamp block. And then essentially you have a DIY stamp. Now these aren't going to work as well as your normal stamps, but they will work pretty well. I was pleasantly surprised with the results when I tried this, and I think you would be too. So now I've got those all on their acrylic blocks, I'm going to use some ombre ink pads for this technique. You don't have to use ombre ink pads, but I do think that it gives just a little something extra to the colouring. You can achieve really similar looks just by inking up part of the foam piece with one colour and then part with another colour. So these ink pads have 3 shades of a colour, so this first one is shades of green. And I'm just stamping that down. You'll see that there are some quite clear lines between the stamping, so you just want to do this little sort of up and down, like cha-cha-cha motion as you ink up the stamp, and that will help not only with the blending but also to get rid of any gaps from the lines in between the ink pads. So because this is a piece of foam rather than a normal stamp, I made sure to ink it up really well, stamped it off once, and then stamped it down on my project. And you can see you actually get a really good impression. Some of that VersaFine did transfer. I did try to heat set it, as you saw with the heat tool just a minute ago, but I did need to heat set that for a little bit longer. So you'll see that each time when I stamp down there is a small piece of the black VersaFine that transfers, but I just wipe that off and there's no problem. So I'm working through these colours using a sort of a light green shade, then an orange, then more of a Christmassy green, and finishing off with some purple. Now, because these pieces of foam that you've got on your stamp blocks are quite thin, it is quite easy to get some ink on your stamp pad, on your stamp block, and then transfer that to your card, which is what I've done here. But that's okay, I managed to fix it. I used my Tombow Mono sand eraser and managed to get most of that away. You could always just plan to put a sequin or something else over the top if you make a similar mistake, or try and cover it up with a white gel pen. Okay, so now on to the next card, and I'm going to show you a different way to get the same results. Because each of these stamps are symmetrical, I can actually just turn over the stamp, so you can see there I've actually got the flat part that would normally stick to your acrylic block facing out, so that's what I'm applying to the ink to now. I found with this, I actually prefer the results of using the dies than using the back of the stamp. I think it's a little bit more splotchy because it's such a smooth, flat area that you're trying to apply the ink to. It does still work. Of course, if your stamp isn't symmetrical, then you wouldn't be able to do this because, you know, if there was say there was part that stuck out on the right hand side, once you flip that stamp over it would be on the left hand side, so it wouldn't match up. But it is a good technique to use if you have symmetrical stamps and you don't have any foam on hand. So I'm just showing a comparison here. This first one is with the foam and this one here is with the back of the stamps. So you can see it has worked well, but there's a little bit more splotchiness on that one on the right hand side. So to turn these into cards, I'm taking a white A6 size note card and just applying some candy cane striped washi tape and trimming off the excess. And I've gone ahead and cut my stamped panel down to just ever so slightly smaller on the longest side than the A6 size note card. And I'm using some Tombow Mono Multi to glue that down. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for all of the cards that I made, and then I'll finish them off with a couple of heart-shaped sequins. So I'm using this Quick Sticks tool here just to help me pick up each of those sequins, and using the removable attachment in the end to help press them down. The glue that I'm using is Multi-Medium Matte. I do like to use this glue with any sequins or anything small that I'm adding onto the front of a card, because if any of that glue oozes out the sides, it will dry matte, so you won't be able to see it. So I think those look really nice just to finish up the card there. I am going to just show you before we finish another variation of ombre stamping. So this is a different kind of ombre ink pad. It doesn't, well, it's not really ombre, it's just a kaleidoscope of different colours. So these particular ink pads, as you saw there, they come with each of the sections sort of split away from each other, and that's to make sure the colours don't bleed into one another because they are so different. So you just push that little lever, moves them together, and then you can stamp down. Now with this particular type of ink pad, I think you get the best results if you stamp twice. It really helps to blend those colours together, particularly on such a large image like the Christmas tree. Okay, so that's everything for day 6. Thank you so much for joining me. If you've enjoyed this video, please do let me know by leaving a comment below or hitting the like button. If you haven't already, do hit subscribe so you don't miss anything more from me. On screen right now are a couple more videos that I think you might enjoy. That's all from me for now. I'll see you again soon.